Welcome to The Striking Point, a TechShop video series hitting the mark with education, training, and technology.
Hello and welcome to the all-new Striking Point video podcast series. My name is Nadine Battah and I'm the editor of TechShop magazine.
And I'm Eric Garbe. I'm an automotive technical writer for TechShop.
This all-new podcast series will extend the conversation of tools and technology with industry experts. Are you excited to get started, Eric?
Oh, absolutely, Nadine.
We're talking all things EVs today. Today we have John Forro, technical trainer specialist for Autel North America, joining us.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
It should be really exciting, and it should be a nice conversation to learn a little bit more about EVs and, the safety standards for EVs.
Oh, absolutely. And so many technicians and shops like myself have a certain level of apprehension when it comes to EV service, and we haven't even gotten started on it yet. So this will be a great conversation.
Absolutely. Let's do it.
All right.
John, thank you so much for joining us today. So let's get started. Many shops have not taken the steps for preparing for EV service. What do you feel is the reason for this, and what do their first steps need to be?
Well, that's a great question. And I've been in this industry a long time, and I think the resistance to embracing this EV technology can be summed up in two different areas. Number one, everybody always resists change. I can remember the one that's probably most similar to this is when computer controls came out on vehicles. A lot of people totally resisted that, some of them were thinking it was just a passing fad. Other ones were thinking, maybe I'm at the end of my career and I don't need to embrace that technology. The other part that I think kind of plays a factor in the first part of this question is, a lot of times the aftermarket parts suppliers are a little bit behind on supplying some parts. That has drastically changed over the past, say, 3 to 5 years. And with a lot of whether it's a plug-in hybrid or an electric vehicle, there are a lot of companies such as Dorman and Standard Motor Parts and people like that has really stepped up to the plate and started making available some aftermarket parts when it comes to electric vehicles. The second part of the question was, what do I think that the shops really need? Right now, I think they need a good understanding of how an electric vehicle works. So, they also need the tooling and equipment, but before you even get to that part of things, they really need some in-depth training on how these vehicles are designed to work. So when they show up in their service bays, they can take that knowledge and apply it to diagnosing and successfully repairing these vehicles.
So another thing I think a lot of people are thinking about is chargers. And a lot of shops probably wonder, like myself, what are the major differences between AC commercial and DC commercial chargers? And are DC fast chargers something that shops will need to consider?
So it's another great question. And I want to start off by saying that I'm a firm believer that every single shop who's going to be servicing any type of electric drive vehicle, even if they're just doing tires or brakes on it, they definitely need a level 2 charger, which is an AC charger. Chargers come in 3 different varieties: level 1, level 2, and level 3. Level 1, we usually call that an emergency charger. That's usually something that's given to the customer when they buy the vehicle. It operates off 110 voltage. The downside to that is it could literally take 40 to 60 hours on some of the latest and greatest electric vehicles to charge a battery, which is why it's an emergency charger. Nobody really has that kind of time. A level 2 charger traditionally will step that up to about 9 times as fast as the level 1 charger. So 9 times faster, you're still talking a couple hours, maybe 4 hours time frame, whatever the case happens to be. But it's something that's doable. If it was my main means of transportation, I could plug the vehicle in while I go to sleep at night. When I wake up, I should have a full charge in that battery. Now, those chargers, level 2 chargers, are needed for an auto repair shop, and these are my beliefs why. You need one because an electric vehicle is different than a gasoline vehicle. Gasoline vehicle, if I don't have that internal combustion engine running, I'm not using any fuel. So even if the fuel tank is relatively low, if I don't run the vehicle a long time, I get done with the repairs, I can give the vehicle back to the customer. Plus there's gas stations all over the place, so they can go and they can fill up that tank. An electric vehicle, however, with the battery management system, whose main job it is to protect the high voltage battery, is in a constant state of discharge of that high voltage battery. So if the temperature, we'll just use this as an example, if the temperature gets a little bit on the warm side, it will go ahead and power up, the BMS will power up the system to help cool off that battery, whether or not the vehicle is even powered up. So with that being said, even if an electric vehicle comes into a shop for tires, let's say, you can't give the vehicle back to the customer with a very low state of charge. You can't give the car back and say, hey, you got 3 miles of range left. Hopefully you get to where you're going. So you need to be able to charge that battery for the customer. The other reason is these vehicles are going to come into a shop and they may have a complaint of the vehicle will not charge. So that if that's the complaint, hey, I plugged the charger in, it was plugged in for all night long, and I woke up and I got 2 miles of range. How are you going to diagnose that problem if you don't have a level 2 charger? Now, with DC fast chargers, the main difference between an AC charger, which is a level 1 or level 2, and a level 3 charger is level 1 and level 2 will go ahead and output AC voltage. The high voltage battery on the vehicle is DC. So that means we have to require some electronics on the car to convert that AC voltage to DC voltage. Whereas a level 3 charger, which is a DC fast charger, depending on the kilowatt output of that charger, you could maybe possibly charge the car in about 20 minutes, which is very attractive. It will export true DC voltage and send that right back to the high voltage battery pack, which is a lot quicker to be able to do it. The downside to the level 3 DC fast chargers are the electrical requirements to install one. Most shops don't have that available to them. So if they wanted to invest heavily with an electrician, sometimes it could be $30,000 to $70,000, depending on what their current electrical state of their shop is. They could go ahead and purchase one of those chargers. The downside also is a steady diet of DC fast charging shortens the life of a high voltage battery. A DC fast charger is primarily made to be placed across the country at different rest stops or where service stations would be, somewhere where if I'm going to travel I'm from Ohio, so if I'm going to travel from Ohio to the West Coast, I don't have 2 to 4 hours to wait to charge my vehicle. I want to pull off and charge up my vehicle on that long extended road trip as quickly as possible. So those are the main differences between them. There are several different, no matter which type of charger they decide they want to purchase, there are several different incentive programs available from the US government right now and also utility companies. So for instance, there's one that's called NEVI that if somebody's looking to buy a DC fast charger, if they apply for this and they meet all the requirements, they could get up to $30,000 towards the purchase of a DC fast charger. Now, some fast chargers may be $10,000. Some fast chargers may be over $100,000. So $30,000 is a lot. And there are some requirements that they have to meet, both the charger and the location where they're going to place the charger. But even utility companies, they may offer, a $200 rebate towards purchasing a charger and putting it in a shop. The other downside to the commercial aspect of chargers are depending on what your shop's goals are. So if you have a relatively large shop and you got a large parking lot and you want to collect revenue from the charger, that's great. You can get a level 2 charger or a level 3 charger, both commercial chargers, whatever you want to do. However, inside the service bays, you pretty much only need a residential charger, which is a level 2 charger, to address those needs of charging the customer's battery and diagnosing lack of charging complaints. Some shops, if it's relatively a smaller shop, may say, I'm not really in the business of making money to collect revenue to charge a person's battery. You might be collecting $20, $30 at a time, where that parking spot may be too valuable for you. You'd rather have that another vehicle using that parking spot that's in there for some front end work, maybe some brakes, a timing belt, timing chain, something that's going to cause a lot more revenue for the shop.
Awesome. And it's really interesting to hear the differences between the AC and the DC fast chargers. And of course, how money becomes such a huge factor in all of this with, basically everything else in the world pretty much. So you mentioned money. When installing an EV charging station, what other problems can shop owners expect to face? And have you seen any type of consistent formula that has proven to be the most efficient for workflow in both small and large shops?
Yes, it's a great question. Whenever you're going to install a charger, to keep the installation costs low, the best thought process is to install the charger as close to your electrical box as possible. Because these chargers, depending on the kilowatt rating, we'll talk about a regular level 2 charger, typically would need 6-gauge wiring. It would need to have at least a 50 amp breaker, depending on the level of charger that you buy. And then you're going to have to create a circuit from the circuit box to wherever this charger is going to be located. So the closer you get to the electrical box, the better off it's going to be as far as financial reasons here. The other things to think about too, the chargers that Autel makes, they're all NEMA 4 certified, which means they can be installed inside or outside. The elements don't play a part in this at all.
Very nice.
But if you're going to install a charger for collecting revenue, for public revenue on the outside of your shop, you have to kind of lay it out, right? You wouldn't want to put it in an area where possibly only one vehicle can access it. You'd rather be able to make it share like 2 parking spots, for instance. That way, if somebody is actually plugged into it, another car could pull in the parking spot next to it. And as soon as that first car is done, they can take the cord and plug it into their car. Some of the chargers come with 2 different charging cords on them, so you could charge 2 cars simultaneously. There are other avenues to make money if this is the way you want to decide to go. The screen on the chargers can run ads. So you could sell advertising space, whether it's something internally, hey, next month I got a sale on tires, or it could be externally. Maybe there's a pizza shop down the street and you're going to charge him a couple $100 a month to run a Friday night pizza special on the screen of your charger. So you kind of want to lay out how you're going to place the charger if you're using it for collecting revenue. And you also want to kind of think about the cheapest way to get those chargers installed and set up so that it makes the most financial sense to be able to do it.
Very interesting. Absolutely. John, I was thinking about terminology, and I automatically think charging station. Is there a difference between a charger and a charging station? And what I'm referring to mainly would be the management of that charging. For example, would a charger just be dedicated for shop use, internal use, whereas a station, as you were just talking about, may give features that you can monetize that for the customers to use, or anybody?
Sure. So chargers come in all different varieties. So first, there's something that's called a dumb charger, which a dumb charger is basically it's hooked up to power, and as soon as you plug it into the vehicle's charging port, it's going to start dispensing a charge. Now, we also have smart chargers on the market. Now, smart chargers allow you a lot of control over the charger. So, for instance, if it's a commercial charger, I can set it up so that it acts as a dumb charger, right? So, in my service bay, I'm not looking to collect any revenue, for instance. I'm using it just to charge the customer's battery and diagnose lack of charging complaints. So, I can set that up so that as soon as I plug it into the vehicle, it's going to start charging the vehicle. Now, if I don't set it up with that, as the charger owner, I am in control over setting the price. There's no federal guideline that you have to follow, but common sense kind of prevails here. If you charge too much, no one's going to use your charger. So it's kind of like if you ran a gas station and you were charging $6 a gallon and everybody else is charging $3 a gallon, no one's going to go to your gas station. So I can go ahead and I can use a software program. In Autel's instance, we use what's called the Autel Charge Cloud. And this gives me the opportunity and the flexibility to not only collect revenue, but I have control over a lot of things. So, for instance, I may say, I'm going to allow the select customers, or maybe their employees, that when they pull up to the charger, they're not charged a fee to use it. But other ones, maybe it's just the general public, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to charge them X amount per charge. Gets a little bit more complicated than that because we have something that's called idle time. And idle time is the vehicle is, maybe used the charger, paid for the charge, everything along those lines, but they're not hanging out by their vehicle. It's not like pumping gas in a vehicle where they're standing there. They're probably going to go get a coffee or whatever amount of time they have to, kind of kill here. Right. So now the car's done charging and this vehicle is just plugged into the port. Now, we're not dispensing any more electricity, but we're also not making money with the next person that wants to use that charger because there's a car in the way. So we also can set what's called an idle time, which means we'll give them a grace period. They'll get notified via text message on their phone. Hey, your vehicle's done. You've got 5 minutes, 10 minutes, whatever we want to give them to move the vehicle. Now, if the vehicle is not moved after that time, we can start charging them a fee either per minute or per hour that it's there. So if it's a hotel chain, let's say, and there's all the different classifications of members, diamond, elite, and gold and platinum, I can structure each one of their payments for that charger at a different rate depending on how loyal of a customer they are. And then I can say, if it's at the hotel, maybe I'm going to charge an idle fee by the hour as opposed to by the minute. If it was a service station right off a freeway exit, well, that one is going to be way busier. So I might want to charge by the minute that idle time as opposed to by the hour.
That's great information. There's so many aspects of this that I didn't even think of. So we definitely appreciate that. That's fantastic. On the subject of scan tools, John, are owners of full function scan tools able to upgrade them for EV service? And what primary functions differ on an EV that a scan tool will need to perform? And are there different connectors that will be required outside of the standard OBD2 connector?
Another great question. So a typical scan tool that we've been accustomed to using for decades always plugs into a diagnostic link connector. So modern day vehicles called an OBD2 connector located somewhere inside the vehicle. Tesla is an exception to that. They don't use the standard OBD2 connector, but they still have diagnostic connectors, sometimes one, sometimes as many as three, that will share the information, because this is what a scan tool basically does, that shares the information that's being shared from module to module on the data bus communication lines on that particular vehicle. So a hybrid, plug-in hybrid, or an electric vehicle, any scan tool that you have that's a full function scan tool can see that information that's being shared along the data bus communication lines. The disadvantage to that is we talked a little bit earlier about a battery management system. Battery management system is vitally important for a couple of reasons. We said its main purpose in life is to protect that high voltage battery. Mm-hmm. The reason being is because that high voltage battery is the most expensive component on an electric drive vehicle. Sometimes it could be in upwards of $20,000. So there's a lot of stories out there where if you have a 5 or 6 year old Tesla and you need a new battery, you got a big decision to weigh here. Is it worth me spending the money to replace the whole battery pack, because that's over $20,000, or is it more worth it to me to just get a different vehicle? So with the battery management system, it goes ahead and gives you an accumulative value of the information that's shared along the data bus communication lines, where Autel, as of right now, has an exclusive technology where we can go ahead and plug directly into the battery management system. This gives the repair technician a lot of extra value of being able to see everything that's internal to that battery management system. So instead of just seeing an overall temperature of the battery pack, let's say, there could be an upwards of 15 different thermistors or sensors inside there. I can see the value from all of those different sensors. I can see the values of all the different individual battery cells that make up that high voltage battery. You know, sometimes there's several hundred cells inside of a high voltage battery. I can see the state of charge and state of health. Some of the bidirectional controls I can do by being able to hook up to the battery management system is I can recalibrate the battery state of charge and state of health. So I like to call that the modern day tune-up. Here's what I mean by this. If I take an electric vehicle, and that was my main means of transportation, I will have what everybody else has. We suffer from something called range anxiety. We don't want to get stranded someplace. So we'll never let our batteries get that low. Traditionally, about 20% charge is about as low as the most average people will let their battery get. The disadvantage to that is that becomes the new zero on a vehicle. Through the algorithms that the computers use, they say, you know what, we don't have a 0 to 100% range anymore. 20% is now the new zero. So number one cause that people bring their vehicle into a service shop for relating to the battery is, hey, when it was new, I'd charge it up and I'd have 300 miles of range. Now I only have 286 miles of range. Does that mean my battery's failing? Well, how does a shop diagnose that, right? And how does the shop cure that problem? So this new type of scan tool that we call an EV diagnostic box that we offer allows us to go in and recalibrate that so that we don't have those lost mileage anymore. Plus, we get an accurate battery state of health, which is beneficial for the customer as well, because let's say I'm thinking about buying a used electric vehicle. Well, you have that concern. Do I want to buy a vehicle? If it was a gasoline car, would I want to buy the car if the transmission was going bad, right? Or if the engine was going bad? Well, we have that same concern with an electric vehicle. There was never really a good way to know how much on average that battery's life is left without being able to go into the battery management system and see it. Now, this EV diagnostic box that we have, it can be upgraded for the second part of your question to any of our existing customers that have the 909, 919, or EV or the Ultra scan tool. If they don't happen to have an Autel scan tool right now, they can buy an Autel scan tool that comes with the box as the EV 909 or the Ultra scan tool.
Very nice. Very nice. And we mentioned this topic a little bit earlier before, safety. Safety is a big concern for technicians. Do your scan tools offer any safety recommendations that can make technicians become more comfortable with EV service, ensuring any safety precautions are not missed?
Yes. So couple different things here. So on our scan tool screens, when they select the type of vehicle that they're going to be working on, so if it's some type of electric drive vehicle, instead of choosing the traditional red diagnostic button, they will choose the green button, which is called new energy. So all of our electric drive vehicles would be found in that general area. Once they select that and they either allow the car to auto identify itself or they go in and start punching in year, make, model, all that kind of stuff, they will come up with a screen. First is just a warning screen saying, hey, this vehicle has high voltage present. It will tell them to make sure they have a thorough understanding of the safety requirements. There's also another screen that comes up afterwards that will talk about the high voltage gloves and different safety measures needed when working on that. Now, depending on what they're trying to do to the vehicle, they'll get more guided safety. So it could be, let's say they pull a trouble code out for a bad inverter on an electric drive vehicle. They will get some information about the inverter. They'll also get wiring schematics of how all the high voltage components are wired together so that they know when they disable the high voltage, if there's any threat that could possibly still be left by looking at that guided wiring diagram that's on there. So safety is always the number one concern of anybody that's working around high voltage vehicles, and Autel has made sure that we address the safety in there on the scan tools. Plus, we've been doing these webinars on electric drive vehicles, and we had a whole webinar just last month just dedicated towards safety and the components and the tooling that an auto shop would need to be able to service these vehicles both safely and proficiently.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, John. This was all very, very informational. We appreciate your time.
Thanks, John.
No problem. I appreciate the offer to come spend some time with you guys.
Wow, that was excellent. What do you think?
That was fantastic. So much great information.
Absolutely. It was very informational, and I just really enjoyed the fact that, he was able to own up to the fact that people are a little resistant on working on EVs, and it might be a little bit scary in the beginning, so it's not all down to the orange wires, it could be other different color wires. So I thought it was great that he, was able to speak on that and just a little bit more about, the different types of chargers and, the different downfalls of having a specific type of charger.
Oh, absolutely. I agree. And the way he laid it out for shops and technicians to understand exactly what they need to do, and really brought a level of comfort as far as explaining the education we need to have, and the fact that they support the safety aspect of it through their scan tools is fantastic.
Absolutely.
And I love the fact that he pointed out things that shops need to consider. For example, letting a car go with a battery that's discharged.
Right.
You don't even think about that.
Right.
And so this gives us a lot of information we need to know.
Definitely. Definitely. Thanks for being here with me today, Eric. We'll be back next month for our next episode. Thanks for watching.